Hi, Youth and Young Adult 2019 General Assembly Planning Team. I'm BJ Barlow. I serve as Associate Regional Minister for the Pacific Southwest region and am serving as the OGMP's Director of Youth and Young Adult Ministries for General Assembly 2019. I am delighted that you have said yes to serve on this planning committee. And am really excited to get started and get the ball rolling about what kind of programming and structure we'll be doing for both youth and young adults next year at General Assembly. I wanted to share this video with you as an introduction to me, but also to the broader vision of our planning team, how we will work with General Youth Council and the Young Adult Commission. I just wanted to share a little bit about the fact that this committee, you are a part of this committee because our hope is to pull together folks from all over the denomination, Canada and the United States, to have a representation of young people and youth leaders who are dedicated to excellence, that might not only bring huge range of gifts and passion, but also be able to represent the diversity in our church. So we have representation ethnically, culturally, geographically, theologically, and creatively. As we serve together, my hope is that you will feel empowered to bring your voice, to bring who you genuinely are to this planning. And not shy away from disagreement, but to see that in our diversity, we can provide some unique opportunities for our young people in the church. The way that I see it, this committee has three primary responsibilities. The first one being to design and implement programming for youth and young adults at General Assembly. That's pretty self-explanatory, but it is pretty a deep responsibility. Lots of bullets underneath that line, and we will discover them together and work together to make sure that that responsibility is taken care of first and foremost. Second responsibility is to provide an organization and foundation for this project by dreaming big and committing to see it through. So we will design, we will implement, but if we serve together as a unified committee, providing that strong foundation, then the network we operate in will have more of an opportunity to really succeed. So the second responsibility is providing that solid foundation, consistency this year as we seek to do God's will with General Assembly. And the third is to be sort of technical directors within our committee. And what I mean by that is that each one of us over time will bring our passion and giftedness to this group, and we hope to plug each person into a different area of planning. Perhaps you love marketing, you're willing to step up and take care of a lot of the marketing for our youth and young adults. Suppose you are good at decorating or creating moods. We would put you in charge of being a creative design technical director or whatever. So we'll check out. You'll have an opportunity to share some about who you are and what you like to do, and how you feel that perhaps God's Spirit is leading you to contribute to this committee and to the planning. So each person serving on the committee might be responsible for a certain section of our planning. That includes for every topic, every area of planning, recruiting help. This is a big project. As you might imagine, if you haven't been a part of this project before, and you certainly know it is a big deal if you have served before, it's important that we seek to reach out and incorporate our own communities and networks to help support youth and young adults. So as a technical director on this committee, you will be asked to reach out to your youth groups, your parents, your folks who volunteer on a regular basis in your network of ministry to get them to come and support and help and lend a hand to make this the best it possibly can be. As a technical director, you will be charged with the responsibility of communicating details to that network and to your churches, wherever you are in whatever region you serve. We need to work together as a committee to be sure that information about youth and young adults for General Assembly 2019 makes it to people. As diverse as this committee is, we want the turnout for General Assembly to be a representation of our church. And the best way that we can contribute to that is to really spread the good news of what we're working on. The last characteristic of what it means to be a technical director on the committee is to be servants, to be willing to do those things that other people might not volunteer to do, setting up, tearing down, spending extra hours working to be sure that the details are taken care of. And in serving in that way, we come to know and understand that folks will also be inspired to act as servants for our youth and young adults. So those three responsibilities, again, as a member of the committee, not to beat a dead horse, but to be sure that everybody's on the same page about this. We are to design and implement programming for youth and young adults, to provide an organizational foundation that will be consistent in our network, and to be technical directors in certain areas of the planning to be sure that all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted as we work together as a committee. Speaking of a network, we really are one of several different entities that are working together for youth and young adults, and what a blessing that is. We can support one another and provide resources for one another. This committee, this planning committee, has several representatives that are also a part of other committees or groups that are working for youth and young adults. One of those being the General Youth Council, and another being the Young Adult Commission. I'll share a little bit more about how our committee is sort of functioning as two different committees. I know it gets complicated, but bear with me. It's a good design, and I think that folks will experience how good it is after a while. But know that some of us may be more interested in helping out with young adults, and some of us may be more interested in helping out with the high school and middle school youth. In which case we may have a group of us meeting to discuss young adults and a group of us meeting for the youth at different times. We'll figure all of that out. Just know that if I have recruited you, or you have otherwise expressed interest in helping with young adults, and you're finding yourself in the Youth and Young Adult Committee and wondering what happened, there is an intentional function here. So thank you. As we work together to provide this foundation of support, your being present and a part of this committee is certainly appreciated. So we have General Youth Council. Those of you who have not heard of the General Youth Council, this is, like many of our regions have, a leadership training team for high school students, and the General Youth Council is the General Church's version. Many youth from around the General Church apply to be a part of this, and these high school students, with the partnership of adults, work to plan General Assembly programming and to provide some depth to the experience for youth, high school youth, and middle school youth throughout the church. The Young Adult Commission is a functioning commission that is doing a fantastic job with organization and communication. They have a system in place to plan programming for young adults. So our role as a committee, a planning committee, really will be to lift them up and to support them the best way we can, and to fill in the blanks wherever that needs to be. So we'll have some opportunities later on to talk more about that. How do I see this committee really contributing to the overall sort of practical responsibilities and tasks that we have set before us. I really see that this committee is an administrative committee who is working with the General Youth Council and with the Young Adult Commission to be sure that all the administrative tasks are taken care of. We work to support their vision as they work to support the larger general church's vision, and of course the GMP's vision. Yeah, so this committee, as we have our own ideas, will also always keep in mind the ideas and vision that General Youth Council and the Young Adult Commission have for General Assembly. I'm excited that we have these bodies that are working together at Network, because it means that this ought to be a strong General Assembly for youth and young adults. Another contribution we give as we work together within this network is to augment what has been done well in the past, and to really bring encouragement by providing resources, especially in promoting the plans that the General Youth Council and the Young Adult Commission have in place. The meat of our work as a planning committee will be to design an educational program that genuinely strengthens the presence and formation of young people in the church. It's in our hands. We have been given the keys to this project to provide some general and real programming. If we think about the fact that we're working for the denomination on this committee to provide youth and young adults, what inspirations can we bring? What big ideas? How can we aim high to be sure that we really are presenting our best for the church, and doing the very best we possibly can do for the youth and young people that we care so much about? So we will think about past surveys and things that young people have said, good and bad, about General Assembly in the past. We will, again, dream big and aim high. We don't want to allow lack of funding or the difficulty of the work that we're doing to prevent us from really dreaming big. And as I mentioned before, you are truly encouraged. You'll find as a leader, I'm really passionate about being sure that we plug folks in using their passions and their gifts to make the church stronger. So bring all that you are to this committee. Share ideas, share your passion. Because we're spread out all over the country, and in Canada, and because we're in different time zones, the procedure of our meetings, the way that the format of how we will gather will probably vary. I'm doing this video now so that we have some flexibility in the beginning as we figure out everyone's availability. You can watch this video at your leisure and rewind it and draw faces on my face if you want to, or whatever. But we want to be creative. We can use technology to be sure that we're operating a high efficiency. One way that I would like to bring organization is to be sure that we have monthly touch point meetings. And what I mean by that is that once a month, at a time and day that the majority of us can get together, we will bring to the meetings a report of what we're working on, each one of us, and share a little bit about how things are going, to ask questions of the committee, and to seek support from the committee. We are in this together, so having those touch point times will be a priority for each of us to be sure that we support one another the best we possibly can. In those meetings, we'll also define what we might not be seeing, as we all work together, some of us veterans to this, some of us newbies, we can talk out areas that might go unnoticed or unaddressed that needs some attention. We'll pray together, we'll share resources and support. So that's the point of the touch point meetings, is that we would have a regular routine time each month that we would get together and share ideas and resources and pray together and share concerns and ask for help. So if you can, please make that a priority. A part of this planning committee and committing to this planning committee is having those meeting times. So my hope is that every month, as many of us can gather via video conference or telephone or whatever we decide is best. The proposed structure for General Assembly. This is sort of the the meat and potatoes part of this video, is to talk a little bit about where we're headed, how we get there, what we've heard from past General Assembly surveys, and what we hope to maintain as far as the legacy and importance of youth and young adult ministries at General Assembly. We have heard a lot in having conversations with past directors of youth and young adult programming at General Assembly, seeing the results of surveys from the youth. We've heard a lot about the desire of providing practical skill training and leadership training for our young people at General Assembly. And part of that means having a diversity of opportunity for folks to engage in various different ways. So the best way that many of us have determined this to happen is by providing workshop tracks. Those of you who are from the PSWR will recognize this model from Unite, providing workshop tracks that when youth and young people register for General Assembly, they would register for a track, much like what the adults do when they register for different tracks. And they will be encouraged to stick with that track throughout General Assembly. Now, we'll have some other opportunities and time for fellowship where everyone gets together, but the concept is, because there are so many different scenarios of people coming to General Assembly, availability varies, and so we want to provide an opportunity for as many people to engage as much as they possibly can at General Assembly by providing areas of interest that they can subscribe to. So, for example, many of our youth and young people are engaged in camp ministries throughout the church, and I've talked to Bill Spangler Dunham about doing a camp track where, for a portion of the General Assembly, there would be workshops for those who are truly engaged in camp leadership to follow a track that trains them, that gives them resources and ideas to beef up camp ministry and to recruit to be a part of that important camp aspect of church. So that's one example of a workshop track. Another workshop track might be something like, building a resume and life experience to pursue a professional career as a Christian. How do we do that? This is all me thinking off the top of my head, but the idea being that there would be various different options for workshop track. I mentioned practical life and faith skills as being a dominant theme that many of our young people are asking for, and having the youth and young adults engage in and helping General Assembly programming throughout the week, not just in workshop leaderships, but also in worship and providing hospitality support, perhaps helping with registration and so on and so forth. Thinking about how our youth and young adults can engage in the life of the General Church at General Assembly in a way that is not just highlighting our young people, but engaging our young people as leaders and as contributing persons at General Assembly. In order to do this effectively, I think that having that network of the Planning Committee, the General Youth Council, and the Young Adult Commission is very important, but we have so many units in our church, and working with them to provide support in our workshop tracks. Perhaps Global Ministries might be able to provide some leaders to come and train our youth what it means to be a missionary, and perhaps that would be one of the tracks that we provide. Perhaps Explore could come and do a workshop to encourage our youth to engage in that. So over the course of our work together as a committee, I'd like to brainstorm how our general units, how we can get connected with who we know, what friends do we have that are operating in those general units that we might be able to call them up on the phone, send an email, and ask them to contribute to the youth and young adult ministry at General Assembly in some way. That would be helpful. And as we work together, and as we live into what it means to be the church, another priority of our committee is to provide a diversity of theology, of perspective, of gifts, so that we really do represent the disciples of Christ. A lot of churches, a lot of regions get caught in homogenous situations of providing. When we do something well, we stick to that one thing, and that tends to draw in a certain demographic of people. And in order for us to be authentic to who we are as a church, we need to be honest with whether or not we're living up to that. So in what ways can we provide programming that might be appealing and helpful and encouraging and empowering of a diversity of demographics of participants? So we'll talk more about that. Let's see. Another area that is not necessarily fun, although some of us are truly called to fundraising, but it's something that we need to think creatively about. We have $8,000 given to us to help with planning for youth and young adults, and that money will go by fast. Trying to think creatively and being efficient and good stewards of that gift that we've been given, to present something that's quality and meaningful is important. But we also need to think about, how can we generate other funding? Are there folks in our churches and in our communities that might be willing to sponsor youth who couldn't afford to go? That $8,000 is based on past attendance, and really, if we don't hit a certain number of participants, then we really don't have $8,000. So the more folks that can participate in General Assembly that fit within the demographic of youth and young adults, the more money we will have to participate, to provide programming. So we need to work together to be sure that information is out there, that we're doing a good job as committee representatives to pump up General Assembly among our youth and young adults, and to be sure that they come back in future years. We need to live up to providing a solid program. So I know all of us are committed to that, but wanted to share that and talk that out a little bit. So you should have received a Google group request or invitation to join the Google group by now. If you haven't, look for it soon. This will be our hub, our way of communicating online. If you post a comment or question or message through the Google group, everyone who's connected in that group will receive email in their preferred email account. So that's a solid way to be sure that every single person who's a part of the committee is included in our correspondences as a committee. So I encourage you to be sure that you're connected to that. Speaking of which, now I've gone on for 23 and a half minutes about some of the ideas that I have, the information that I've gathered, and the broader vision for the Youth and Young Adult Planning Committee for General Assembly. Now I want to hear from you, and the rest of the committee would like to hear from you. To introduce yourself, share a little bit about who you are, how you ended up getting drawn into the Youth and Young Adult Planning Committee. But also, I have 3 questions for you. To get our creative juices flowing and the ball rolling a bit on planning, I'd like for you to reflect on 3 things. Spend some time thinking through these 3 questions, and then perhaps do a video like this one, just a little less awkward, might be good. But think through these 3 questions, and perhaps write some notes. If you don't want to do a video, just write it out in an email. You could post it on the Google group. But this is a way for us to at least initially begin to have a conversation, even if it's virtually. So the first question I have for you is, for those of us who have gone to General Assembly, what is the one thing that you feel, if changed, would make youth and young adult ministry stronger at GA? If you've never been to GA before, think about your own experience, perhaps in regional leadership or local congregation. Thinking generally, what is one thing that if we changed that one thing about youth and young adult ministries, you feel would dramatically improve experiences for young people? So spend some time thinking about that, jot some notes. And the second one is connected to that. The second question is, why do you feel that this one thing would strengthen the ministry? Why? Explain it out. Talk it out. If this one thing was changed, here is why it would make a big difference. And the third final question is, how could you, using your passion and your gifts and your education and your personal experience in ministry, how can you help make that change? So, 3 questions. Think of one thing that if changed would make youth and young adult ministry amazing. The second question is, why do you think that one thing would make it better? And the third thing is, how would you personally, in your life experience, be able to contribute to that change? So, take some time thinking about those, jot down some notes, make a video, and post it on the Google group, let's say within the next week or so, so that we can really begin to get the ball rolling and think creatively about our next steps. You should have received a link to the Google form to begin mapping out our touchpoint meetings, what day and time works best for you. I encourage you to please fill that out as if you haven't already, so that we can get our first meeting on the calendar. That'll be helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, send me a text, send me an email. My email address is bjbarlow@discipleспswr.org. Telephone number is 626-632-2780. I text really well, so anytime, feel free to give me a text. I really am excited about this group and the folks that we've pulled together to make this happen, and just want to express to you how thankful I am for your committing to this. So to close out, let me pray for us. God, thank you so much for what you're doing in our midst. Use us, Lord God, as your instruments to touch the lives of young people in our church, not for the sake of this institution, but for the sake of your people and for your kingdom. Lord, thank you so much for the responsibility, for trusting us with this responsibility. Lord, fill us with your Spirit, fill our mouths with your words, that we might live into what it means to be a biblical community, to live in love and support of one another, especially those who are in need. Lord, thank you for our young people in the church who are energizing communities all over the globe, Lord. Help us to continue on a path of inspiration and hope for them. Be with us in our various different contexts and places, and help us to always remember your love, especially through Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much, folks. Look forward to seeing and hearing your comments on Google Group, and we'll talk to you soon. God bless. Bye-bye.